Good to know that you're watching us live on DSTV channel 422 and Star Times channel 274, streaming live on social media. Welcome to News Now here at News Central Television. With me, Joe Hanson. Let's take a look at the top stories for this hour. Supreme Court to rule on suit challenging EFCC's constitutionality. Dangote Refinery makes U-turn on import licenses of NNPCL, withdraws 100 billion naira suit against NMDPRA. Uganda's military tribunal convicts 16 opposition members. You get the details of these stories and more. Stay with us in a moment. News Central now. This hour begins at the courts as we understand that the Supreme Court is set to deliver a crucial ruling today on a suit filed by 19 state governments challenging the constitutionality of the laws establishing the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The state governments argue that the EFCC's establishment in 2004 violated Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution, which requires compliance with specific procedures when incorporating international conventions into Nigerian law. They cited the Supreme Court's decision in Dr. Joseph Nwobike versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which referenced the United Nations Convention Against Corruption as the basis for the EFCC's formation. The case, initiated by the Kogi State government and supported by 18 other states, seeks to determine the legality of the anti-graft agency's operation. Staying with the judiciary, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nwobike, has flagged off the construction of 40 housing units for judicial officers in Abuja. The minister during the ceremony assured the judiciary that the units will be completed in 15 months, saying funds have already been made available. Amadine Uyi was there and he tells us more in this report.
The flag-off ceremony had in attendance members of the executive led by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and senior justices from the different divisions of the judiciary.
Every man needs housing, so also judicial officers. And so, Mr. President, listen, it is not every time we talk about we support the independence of the judiciary. We must show in practice, we must show in action that we were indeed not say so, but we did so.
On this 5.2 hectare land, we have 40 housing units divided into 3 sections. 10 units for the Court of Appeal, 10 units for the Federal High Court, 20 units for the FCT High Court.
The leadership of some of the arms of the judiciary expressed their views on the gesture by the FCT administration.
This housing project, therefore, is more than just a physical structure. It is a tangible expression of our belief that a strong judiciary, supported by a comfortable and stable environment, is essential for the well-being and prosperity of our nation.
The sheer number of 40 residencies for judicial officers in one fell sweep is a staggering development that underscores the Federal Capital Territories Administration's commitment to supporting the judiciary of this country.
This historic initiative stands as a testimony of the unyielding commitment of our leaders and the foundational vision of our judiciary. The construction of these 40 judges' quarters is not only an investment in infrastructure, but a concrete affirmation of our collective belief in the sanctity and independence of the judiciary.
While the minister assured that the houses will be fully funded so that they are completed on time, the Chief Justice of the Federation says that they will improve the effectiveness of judicial officers.
We are not going to hold the contractors at all. We'll make sure that this is a parallel project that will be completed on time, and my Lord, the Chief Justice, will also be here next year by the grace of God to come and commission it.
Judicial officers require peace of mind, security, and comfort in their residences to fully dedicate themselves to the rigorous task of interpreting and applying the law. The construction of these residences is a practical step towards ensuring that judicial officers are well supported.
The FCT minister assured that more houses will be completed next year for the FCT High Court and the Industrial Court of Nigeria. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Lagos State government's plan to build a new airport in Lekki may face legal challenges due to an existing agreement with Courtney Aviation Services, which forbids new airport construction while their concession at Murtala Mohammed Airport 2 is active. Despite this, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu met with officials from the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority and the Federal Airport Authority to expedite the project. Experts back the airport, saying it will ease traffic at the busy Murtala Mohammed Airport. In 2022, the federal government approved the Lekki International Airport project. However, Courtney holds a 36-year concession, of which only 17 years have passed, potentially complicating the new airport's construction. And over now to politics. Governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party have summoned the party's acting national chairman, Omar Damagum, and National Secretary Samuel Anyanwu to a crucial meeting today. The meeting comes ahead of the planned National Executive Committee session scheduled for Thursday. At the gathering, the Olagusoyo Reconciliation Committee is expected to present its findings and potential recommendations to the party's National Working Committee. Speaking to journalists after a meeting with the PDP National Assembly caucus in Abuja on Monday, Oyinlola, the former governor of Osun State, assured that the party is finalizing strategies ahead of the Ondo State governorship election and is actively working to reconcile aggrieved members to ensure a united front for future challenges. Staying with politics, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has rejected a request from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Ondo to remove Toyin Babalola, the state's resident electoral commissioner, REC, ahead of the November 16 governorship election. The PDP argued that Babalola, who has lived in Ondo for over 30 years, is too connected to the state to remain impartial. Despite their concerns, INEC spokesperson Rotimi Oyekomi stated that there's no evidence of unethical behavior to warrant our redeployment. He emphasized that INEC's decision on REC postings are based on policy and that Babalola will stay in her role. INEC says it is committed to ensuring a free and fair election in Ondo State. The business-related story now. In a surprising twist of events, the Dangote Group has made a U-turn and announced that it will withdraw its 100 billion naira suit against the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, for granting import licenses to the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Metrics Petroleum Services Limited, AA Rano Limited, and 4 other companies, despite local production of petroleum products. The Dangote Group, in a statement late Monday, said the suit filed at the Federal High Court in Abuja on September 6, 2024, was an old issue and that events have overtaken the suit. Security matters now. Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru has reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to resolving the ongoing farmer-header clashes in Plateau State. Speaking in Jos during a meeting with opinion leaders, traditional rulers and security agencies, Badaru expressed deep concern over the continued violence despite efforts to address the issue. The meeting took place at the 3-division headquarters in Basa local government area. Badaru warned against partitioning communities along ethnic or religious lines, describing such divisions as disastrous. He emphasized the need for harmonious coexistence and vowed that the government would not entertain demands for segregation. Well, to discuss this, I am being joined by Inko Taria Ipalibo, a security expert. Good morning to you and thank you for being here on News Now.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What has been the effectiveness of the federal government's efforts to address the farmer-header clashes over the years? Do you think the measures implemented so far have proven to be sufficient enough to prevent further violence?
The methods that they've implemented over the years has not been effective enough. That's why we keep seeing a reoccurrence of attacks and counterattacks on both sides. So for the minister reaffirming the commitment of the federal government to put an end, I feel that's just a political statement and the issue has gone beyond politics. it's high time they take decisive measures to prevent the attacks.
All right. How have the conflicts impacted the social fabric and the cohesion of communities in Plateau State? What role do you think ethnic and religious tensions have played in exacerbating the clashes?
Well, the foundation for the crisis has always been rooted to religious and ethnic divides and various ideologies. If you consider the history of the farmer headers crisis, it has always been based on certain religious sentiments and certain ethnic sentiments, and the unwillingness of both parties to come together to live in peace, in one accord, and harmoniously. And of course, in recent time, it has been escalated with infiltration of certain militant elements of the headers divide.
Well, Mr. Pulabo, let me ask you one more question. What are the potential long-term solutions to the farmer-header clashes? And how can the government and local communities work together to promote peaceful coexistence and sustainable development?
The solution, part of the recommendations that we've made at certain forums where we belong, is to have a segmented part of the community where the headers can keep their animals, where they could keep their animals and rear them like a ranch, rather than allowing them to graze in the open field. Because the traditional occupation of the Plateau people is essentially farming, and they are farming. Every available land is a farmland to the Plateau man. And so if you allow the headers to graze openly with their animals, they would trespass into the various farms of the indigenes, and they will not take that lightly. So if you want to solve the problem beyond politics, then there should be grazing centers for the headers where their cattle will be restricted to grazing, and so there will be no trespassing into the farmlands of the indigenes. I think that, to a long extent, would provide peace.
Thank you, Mr. Nkotare Palibo, for joining our security experts and shedding light on this particular topic.
Thank you for having me.
Great. We'll go for a break now. When we return, Nigerians mark the 4th anniversary of the EndSARS protest. Many questions yet unanswered. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. It's been 4 years since the EndSARS protest, a nationwide movement that rocked Nigeria and brought global attention to police brutality in the country. In October 2020, thousands of young Nigerians took to the streets demanding the disbandment of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, or SARS, a unit of the Nigerian police force notorious for harassment, extortion, and extrajudicial killings. Our correspondent Bernard Akede looks back on the key events that have unfolded over the last 4 years and the current state of justice for the victims of that movement.
It started as a peaceful protest with demonstrators carrying placards and chanting slogans like "End SARS" and "We want justice." The movement quickly gained momentum with protests in major cities across Nigeria. The youth-led protests were fueled by years of anger and frustration over police brutality and impunity. But what began as peaceful demonstrations ended tragically at Lekki Tollgate on October 20, 2020, when security forces allegedly opened fire on unarmed protesters. The judicial panel set up in various states were a good first step, but 4 years later, many victims and their families are still waiting for compensation, and very few police officers have been prosecuted. Many believe the slow pace of justice is disheartening and it sends the wrong message about accountability. The Nigerian government did eventually disband SARS, but activists say the reforms that followed have not addressed the deeper issues within the police force.
Is that when you are talking of the police institution today, you are not talking about an independent body that is out there to preserve the rights and dignity of Nigerian citizens. That is what is there on paper or in the constitution. When the real sense of the world, the police and the army are simply instruments of class oppression and class coercion. It is not difficult to understand the meaning of that statement that you had clear instructions and where those clear instructions would have come from. But don't forget that the massacre 4 years ago at Lekki Toll Gate was also a product of clear instructions by certain people in power, especially those who had business interests at the Lekki Toll Gate.
For many Nigerians, police brutality remains a daily reality. Speaking on News Central's breakfast show, one of the protesters who was taken into custody on the 4th anniversary of NSAS shares her experience.
Comrade Soweto went to meet the police. I think he went to meet one of the policemen to explain our reasons for being there. Before we know what was happening, police were already beating us. They were beating us, like, move it, move it. Okay, we started moving. And that was how they moved us to their Black Maria. We are not criminals. That is the way you handle criminals. We were just protesters that were out yesterday to lay wreath, to commemorate the dates that the massacre that happened there 4 years back. But we were brutalized and beaten by the police.
In 2021, the Lagos State governor called on the youth members of the diplomatic corps, civil society groups, students, and the media to join him on the peace walk. He said it will signal a new beginning towards the rebuilding of the state. Sanwo-Olu specifically invited Faust, Debo Adeboye, popularly known as Mr. Macaroni, Dele Farotimi, an activist and lawyer, Seun Kuti, amongst others. His invitation was declined, with Seun Kuti saying there cannot be peace without justice. Over the past 4 years, judicial panels were set up in various states to investigate cases of police misconduct, and several victims have been compensated. But many relatives of those who lost their lives, especially at the Lekki Toll Gate, have chosen not to speak to the media, citing fears for their safety. As the country reflects on the events of October 2020, the fight for justice continues. While some progress has been made, activists and victims say that true justice and reforms are still a long way off. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Well, away from that, the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency has condemned the recent remarks by lawmaker Oyinlola Ashiru, accusing the Member of Parliament of a direct attack on the agency's reputation. The spokesman of the agency made this known in Abuja during a press briefing, accusing the lawmaker of exercising a personal vendetta against the agency. News Central's Joshua Imarai has more in this report.
The statement by the lawmaker was made during the bill to establish the National Institute for Drug Awareness and Rehabilitation at the Senate in Abuja.
NDLA had become so compromised, so ineffective to the extent that leaving drug enforcement or drug education to NDLA will never get where we are going to.
The statement elicited reactions and nationwide controversy as the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency refused to let it sleep.
For a member of the upper chamber to have made such an unfounded and unwarranted categorical statement against the agency led us to look inward to see what could have been responsible for such a carpeting general statement. What we found out was shocking, and we concluded that his statement came from a place of vendetta and certainly not out of public interest or any altruistic motive.
The NDLEA claims that Senator Ashiru's statement was driven by a personal vendetta against the agency following a raid on his residence over suspected use of illicit drugs by its occupants.
Based on credible intelligence and surveillance which confirmed that the senator's house was being used as a drug joint for drug dealers and users, the house was raided by operatives at 1:30 p.m. on February 4, 2024. during which the 2 aides were arrested while a third suspect escaped arrest. In another encounter with the senator, the agency also received intelligence that some of his boys, popularly known as Omo Senator, operating from his hometown of were equally dealing in illicit drugs.
The NDLEA has stated that it will not be deterred by any attempt to tarnish its image and remains committed to its mission. The agency reaffirmed its determination to dismantle all illicit drug networks across Nigeria, regardless of the status or reputation of those involved. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Well, away from that, the Nigeria Immigration Service has named social media personality Okuneye Idris, is known as Bobrisky, as a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. In a statement released on Monday, NIS confirmed that Bobrisky was intercepted at the Seme border while attempting to flee the country. The statement noted that Idris is under investigation for recent public concerns. This follows Bobrisky's sentencing in April 2024 to 6 months in prison for naira abuse, although reports suggest he was discreetly moved from Kirikiri prison after only 3 weeks. Allegations of a 15 million naira bribe to officials for special treatment have fueled speculation around the case. Out of fear of the unknown, residents of Umuahia have observed the first day of a 2-day sit-at-home order issued by an anonymous group. There was a complete lockdown in the early hours, with schools, markets, government offices and private organizations remaining closed. However, a few defied the order later in the day by opening their businesses. Isaiah Noah says the directive is impacting businesses, adding that those who choose not to open are indeed left with no choice. For some young people like Lovett, Isaiah not being in school today provided an opportunity to earn money to support their education. Take a look.
I think the environment does not call for you opening your business. Sometimes you just don't open business. You open business because of the people. And when the people are under some kind of fear, you understand, and fear is not a good thing, then we respect the people. That way, without the people, there's no business. The fear comes from, a lot of people will tell you that sitting at home does not give them the direct benefit of what they're looking for. I'm a businessman and I know it affects me business-wise. For example, just an hour business-wise is more than 1 trillion naira. An hour, depending on the business, but it's lost.
There's no sitting, it's starting. So why are you not sitting at home? Why are you selling? I need money.
Ahead of the 29th conference of the parties in Azerbaijan, climate advocates in Nigeria have called for a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation framework. They say this will help track the progress and impact of local climate initiatives across the country. News Central's Joshua Imarai has more.
As the world prepares for the COP29 Climate Change Summit, many in Nigeria believe it is time for the nation to join others in taking center stage so as to address climate change. With Nigeria significantly emitting greenhouse gas emissions and vulnerable to climate-related disasters, the need for effective climate action has never been more pressing. Climate advocates have called for early engagement with the policymakers to help drive meaningful change.
We can also hold governments responsible for this adaptation commitment. Lobby Nigerian government. I feel like we should even do this pre-COP. Forming a relationship with the Nigerian government, because most of the agenda that is taken into COP is already approved, by the parliament in Nigeria before COP. The CSOs are more closely related to the grassroots communities. They are like a bridge between grassroots and government.
They say the establishment of a robust monitoring and evaluation framework will help track outcomes of local climate action across Nigeria.
Monitoring and evaluation framework should be established to check the outcomes of these local climate actions that are being taken, to keep track, okay, are we making progress like the NDCs and other initiatives that are put in place.
Thank you so much.
Speaking on the challenge of reporting climate change, some journalists say there's a need for capacity building within the media to help effectively create awareness on the effects of climate change.
First, the media has to be aware. There's need for more capacity building for journalists to know these issues. I say so because I'm aware myself. I know there's a huge communication gap amongst my own community. So there's need for journalists to know, to be more aware of these issues, so that they now can help highlight these problems the way they are and push into our people for them to take this action.
As pre-COP discussion gained traction, experts say that an informed media is essential to holding government accountable and enhancing public support for climate adaptation. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Marai.
Delta State played host to a women's conference called the Power of Her Women's Conference in Asaba. During the conference, speakers emphasized the importance of women supporting and uplifting one another to achieve political and economic empowerment. News Central's Osinazu reports.
A group of young women from various backgrounds and sectors conveyed on Unity Hall Government House Asaba, the Delta State capital, to collectively raise their voices and share experiences in promoting women's leadership in politics and governance. Distinguished keynote speakers addressed critical issues facing women today, such as effective leadership, balancing professional and personal responsibilities, and overcoming challenges and stereotypes in leadership roles. Through their personal stories, they encouraged attendees to remain dedicated to their passions and ambitions, avoiding the temptation to prioritize individual interests over collective progress and instead striving to realize their full potential.
So you must learn how to manage your time and also prioritizing the things that are important. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everywhere.
Anything you set your mind to, particularly you can be a powerful woman in politics and in governance.
Way forward is very simple, but in principle it's kind of hard, especially for people who do not understand how important it is for the female to not just be empowered, but for us to actually create opportunities for females. Realize that the subject matter starts from our education, it starts from home, it starts from everything that it is that we do as a people, as a government, and as individuals.
Representing the governor's wife, Mary Erijo, the executive assistant to Governor Sheriff Oborewori of Women Mobilization, highlighted the connection between the event and the You Matter Charity Foundation, a key initiative of the governor's wife, urging women to continue uplifting one another.
A lot of us have learned, even we who are the elderly, we also have been taught, we've gotten messages today that we'll go back to our communities and begin to empower and pull up those who are down and empower them politically and otherwise.
Miracle Arimobi, Special Assistant to Governor Oborewori on Female Youth Development and the program's convener, outlined its objectives, calling on young women to develop essential leadership skills in preparation for future leadership roles.
Advice to young girls in Delta State as they navigate through the political terrain and the system is that they should understand that there's a need for mentorship, there's a need for collaboration and partnership, there's also a need for respect and unity.
Participants shared the valuable insights they gained during the events.
I learned a lot, especially concerning me as a woman. I have my power, I have my own rights to do whatever I want and help myself to grow as well.
First of all, I learned how to manage myself as a woman, how to manage being a mother, how to manage being a leader, and also women involvement in politics. Yes, that women need to actually get involved in the system.
Every woman has the ability to do things. This goes to the young ones out there. Do not limit yourself. Do not look down on yourself. Have the confidence, the boldness that the leadership of a woman is the future of tomorrow.
The panel of experts offered an in-depth exploration of how young women can harness their potential while navigating the political landscape. In Delta for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
The Corporate Accountability and Public Participation has called Africans and allies worldwide to stand together against the privatization of water resources. The group made the call during a press conference on Monday in commemoration of the 4th Africa Week of Action Against Water Privatization. The theme, Water Justice Over Profit, focuses on interrogating the rising wave of discontent in Africa against public disinvestment by governments and on exposing the external forces and technical strategies that drive the privatization agenda.
Water justice demands more than just the provision of water. It calls for fair and equitable distribution of water resources, prioritizing public welfare over private profits. It emphasizes the need for community management of water resources and a participatory approach to water governance that includes the voices of all citizens, especially the marginalized and disadvantaged.
Across the continent, we face a variety of assaults on our human right to water from corporations and their backers. In Nigeria, USAID, WaterAid, FCDU, AFDP, Global Water Partnership, among others, have promoted these privatization ventures. Particularly, support for privatization schemes and influence on water management in Lagos State has been connected to the sacking of hundreds of unionized workers in recent times, and this is steering the city towards privatization of water.
Recently, the Lagos State government announced intentions to ban sachet water, commonly known as pure water, and other single-use plastics beginning January 2025. This decision is part of a broader environmental effort to address the significant plastic waste problem, which clogs drainage systems, contributes to flooding, and harms marine ecosystems. However, what alternatives are being made to cushion these bans?
For the government to be sincere in tackling a problem they originally created, they must also create the solution. So what Lagosians are supposed to be asking is, where is the public water utility to, as we phase this out, then what replaces it? For your information, those water that we say pure water accessible to the poor is actually, there is actually almost like a cabal that also are benefiting for the non-availability of public water in Nigeria.
On a continent where many live on less than $1 a day, commodifying water deepens existing inequalities and exacerbates the water crisis rather than resolving it. Advocates argue that privatization leads to higher water tariffs, deteriorating infrastructure, and reduced governmental accountability, all of which contribute to water scarcity and inequity. In Lagos, for News Central, I'm Bettina Nwobike.
Coming up next here on News Now, Morocco rejects UN proposal to petition disputed territory. We have this story and more after this break. The news continues in Central Africa, where Cameroonian President Paul Biya has returned to the capital, Yaoundé, after weeks abroad, dispelling rumors about his health. The 91-year-old leader was seen arriving at the international airport alongside his wife, Chantal, as a jubilant crowd gathered to welcome him. Supporters, dressed in outfits adorned with his portrait, sang and chanted to the beat of drums while lining the streets as his motorcade swiftly departed the airport for the presidential palace. Large posters welcoming the long-serving president were also visible throughout the city. Biya's absence from the public eye following his departure from Beijing in early September after China-Africa summit had fueled speculation about his health. In the east of the continent, a Ugandan military tribunal has convicted 16 members of the opposition National Unity Platform on charges of illegal possession of explosive devices and treachery. The prosecution alleged that the group, along with others still at large, was found with explosives between November 2020 and May 2021 during the country's election period. Meanwhile, defense lawyer Shamim Malinde raised concerns about the circumstances surrounding the group's sudden guilty plea, noting that they had previously denied the charges. Opposition leader Bobi Wine, whose real name is Robert Changulanyi, also claimed that the 16 were coerced into pleading guilty in hopes of securing a presidential pardon. The convicted individuals who have already spent 4 years in detention, are set to appear in court on Wednesday for sentencing. Up north, Morocco's Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita has rejected a recent proposal by a United Nations envoy to petition the disputed territory of Western Sahara, calling it unacceptable. Speaking on Monday, Bourita referenced past rejections of similar plans, reaffirming Morocco's firm stance on the issue. The UN's Western Sahara envoy, Staffan de Mistura, presented a petition proposal during a closed session of the UN Security Council last week, suggesting it as a solution to the decades-long conflict between Morocco and the pro-independence Polisario Front. Bourita said de Mistura had already made the same proposal during an April visit to Morocco, but it was dismissed by the kingdom as it contradicts Morocco's long-standing position that Western Sahara is part of its sovereign territory. Tunisia's re-elected President Kais Saied took the oath of office on Monday at the Assembly of People's Representatives headquarters in Tunis, the nation's capital. The parliamentary session was attended by deputies, members of the National Council of Regions and Districts, and senior government officials. In his address, President Saied vowed to protect Tunisia's independence, uphold the constitution and the country's laws, and remain loyal to its interests. He highlighted the fight against terrorism and corruption as key priorities for his administration. Saied firmly rejected any form of foreign interference in Tunisia's internal affairs, declaring that the country's sovereignty is a red line that must not be crossed. North Korea has denied allegations that it sent troops to support Russia in the ongoing war in Ukraine. This marks the first official response from Pyongyang following the claim made by South Korea. Addressing the issue at a UN General Assembly session in New York, a North Korean representative dismissed the accusations, stating that his delegation does not feel any need for comments on such groundless, stereotyped rumors aimed at smearing the image of the DPRK. The denial follows claims made by South Korea's intelligence agency, which stated on Friday that North Korea had decided to send a large-scale troop deployment to aid Moscow. According to the report, 1,500 special forces were already in Russia's Far East undergoing training. On Monday, the United States expressed concern, calling the potential deployment of North Korean troops to Ukraine a dangerous development. And for business, let's now join our business desk for today's business news.
In business, the federal government of Nigeria has announced plans to increase oil production by 1 million barrels per day within the next 12 to 24 months. This was revealed by Gbenga Komolafe, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, during the Commission's 3rd anniversary celebration. Similarly, he further revealed that the government has approved Seplat Energy's $1.28 billion acquisition of ExxonMobil's onshore assets. The acquisition grants Seplat Energy a 40% interest in 4 oil mining leases, the Kwa Ibo Export Terminal, and a 51% stake in the Bonny River Natural Gas Liquids Recovery Plant. And still in Nigeria, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Gas Marketing Limited and A4E Energy have partnered to build a 100 million standard cubic feet per day natural gas distribution facility in Ajaokuta, Kogi State. The gas city gate will supply natural gas to domestic LNG plants, CNG facilities, and industries in the area. Additionally, NGML and A4E Energy have signed a 10-year gas sales and purchase agreement for 5 million standard cubic feet per day of natural gas to A4E Energy's CNG operations. This partnership aligns with the Nigerian government's Decade of Gas program and the Presidential CNG initiative. NGML, Nigeria's leading gas marketing and distribution company, is collaborating with A4E Energy, a domestic company focused on gas operations, to leverage Nigeria's abundant natural gas resources for industrial development and the benefit of its citizens. And finally, Larry Logan, the president of U.S. Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas on Monday, indicated that she expects the central bank to continue lowering interest rates and reducing its balance sheet. In a speech delivered at the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association annual meeting, Logan stated that a gradual decrease in the policy rate towards a more neutral level can help manage risks and achieve the Fed's goals. While acknowledging the economy's strength, she highlighted uncertainties surrounding the labor market and inflation. Logan's remarks come as market participants debate the Fed's ability to deliver the half percentage point worth of rate cuts projected in September. Recent job data has suggested a stronger than expected labor market, which could potentially limit the need for aggressive rate cuts. And that's a package on Business News at this time. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasami Peter. The news continues shortly.
In sports, the market value of the Super Eagles has surged to 282 million euros, marking a 30 million euros rise from the previous value of 252 million euros in July. This follows a series of declines early in the year, largely due to key player absences, including star striker Victor Osimhen, whose 75 million euros value significantly affects the team's overall worth. Osimhen's absence from crucial matches against South Africa and Benin Republic had caused a dramatic drop, but the return of players like Taiwo Awoniyi, Chidera Ejuke, and a rise in Victor Boniface's market value have contributed to the recent increase. Despite the improvement, the Super Eagles are still behind Morocco as the second most valuable team in Africa, with Morocco valued at 325 million euros. On the global stage, the Eagles have climbed 7 spots to 19th in terms of financial value. Players such as Adebola Lookman, Calvin Bassey and Ola Aina also contributed to the team's market rise. However, Kelechi Iheanacho's value has dropped to 9 million euros, while Maduka Okoye, with a value of 7.5 million euros, leads among the team's goalkeepers. The South African Proteas women's cricket team is expected to arrive at OR Tambo International Airport, where they will be greeted by their loyal supporters. The team made headlines with their performance at the T20 World Cup, where they shocked the cricketing world by defeating the defending champions Australia in the semi-finals. The Proteas showcased their resilience and in a well-deserved place in the final. However, the championship match saw them face off against a formidable New Zealand side. Despite their effort, the Proteas fell short, with New Zealand clinching the title after posting a score of 158 runs for 5 wickets in their 20 overs. Now let's join our correspondent, Bongani Siziba, who is at the OR Tambo International Airport. Good morning to you, Bongani. Can you bring to us what the environment, or you could say the area, looks like, the airport? Is it a rousing welcome? What are the expectations, especially from the fans, and not forgetting to the athletes?
Good morning, Joe. Quite a beautiful atmosphere here at the Tambo International Airport here in Johannesburg. As fans have come in their numbers just to welcome the Proteas women participated in the T20 World Cup. While it may not be a celebrating day, but it's a day to celebrate their victory. What is on everyone's mouth here is that game against Australia, where they beat Australia to go to the finals. But let me just ask our cameraman, Spondeno, just to show us around fans that are here, they come with their numbers, just to welcome those friends that are here. And friends are eagerly waiting for the team arrival and expressing their love and dedication for the team and also the admiration. But let me just talk to some friends who are here, just for them to tell us why they are here and what is it that they like about our coaches. So here's welcome the Proteas women. Your message to them and what makes you happy to come here to welcome them?
Yeah, good morning to you. I just want to tell them welcome back home, and we are proud of you. Yet you thrashed the horses and you couldn't bring the cup home, but there's the next time you definitely bring it back.
Like I said, Joe, you said it's all about trash horses, except one. about that. Even if they did not take that path, but they are all happy about the meeting Australians. Thank you for joining us. What makes you happy?
What makes me happy is it's an all-women's team, and it's so empowering to see women playing and being on the top.
And your outstanding player and performances that you saw to 20.
I love all the players. They all have my heart, especially because they're women, as I said, and I can't really pick one.
Joe, you have it. The women supporting other women. But I'll also ask my camera person to keep on showing you what's going around here. Any minute from now, the pictures will be coming through that to a very big welcome from South African friends. We know that New Zealand beat South Africa 158-5 in 20 overs, but that has nothing to do with the fans that are here. They are only happy about the achievement of the Croatians beating the cup holders Australia. It's back to you, Australia.
Well, you could say women supporting women, and everyone is truly excited. Cannot wait to welcome the Proteas and celebrate them, especially for a job well done. Thank you so much, Bongani Siziba. Hopefully, we'll track back and see what the arrival indeed would look like. And that's all we have for you on the news for this hour. But before we go, let's remind you of the major stories once again. Supreme Court to rule on suit challenging EFCC's constitutionality. Dangote Refinery makes U-turn on import licenses of NNPCL, withdraws 100 billion naira suit against NMDPRA. We also told you about Uganda's military tribunal convicting 16 opposition members. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, and other platforms as well that you can find there on the screen. Don't forget at 10 a.m. the ladies will be here. Women supporting women for Jasiri. I'm Joe Hanson. Good.